People over here, come on in. Mr. Corey, that's Mr. Corey, everyone. Hello, thanks for being here. Welcome to our junior readings. Quick note before I go into this little talk here. Silence your cell phones. You can use them for recording or taking pictures, but keep them quiet and maybe no flashes. That can be distracting. Also, there are 2 exits here and here, which I need to mention in case of emergency. There might be, this is a reading, this is a poetry reading, there might be an emergency. Okay, these students, what I first noticed about this group of juniors when they entered my fiction class back in the fall was how dedicated they were already, how into it, how hungry they were to learn. Some new groups of students take a little time to warm up to the immersive nature of our program, but this group was ready to go from the start. In my class, they wanted to talk about fiction, to come up with good interpretations of fiction, to make good analytical comments, and to write their own stories that were informed by the principles they were learning in class. In other words, this class has a very active, a very alive, creative energy. And that wellspring of creativity has allowed them to craft and explore various styles, voices, and ways of expressing in fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. They are now, or are about to be, halfway through their journey at this school. The challenge from here is how to sustain that energy. Not just rely on it, but to cultivate it and care for it. One does this in a seemingly simple way, although it's not all that simple. It's by staying in touch with art and making it a practice. And that's what I'm seeing now. The hard work and dedication and intuitive energy these students brought to being writers is now transitioning into learning how to practice being a writer. And even in the hallway, before this reading tonight, I observed these students tweaking and revising and editing, all part of the practice of being a writer. Because it's the practice of writing that allows one to stabilize and then better use that initial intuitive creative energy. And these students have tapped into that creative practice, and tonight it's my pleasure to listen with all of you to the results of that practice. Our first reader is Ellison Peace.
My name is Ellison, and I'm going to be reading an excerpt from a piece titled Fat and Happy. His face was fat and shiny like the hams that hung over his head. I could not parse those burly arms that had once embraced me. He was thin back then, had once worn a slim suit jacket. Since the breakup, his fingers had clubbed like German sausages. The gold band I'd held in my cupped waiting hands would never again fit those swollen knuckles. Back when I concerned myself with his health, I asked him with a certain naivete I'd come to hate about myself to lay off the red meat. The request had been a turning point in our relationship, a stage of my life that had both begun and ended at his insistence. I can't deny that he emerged the victor of our engagement. Fat and happy he stood before me now, leaving me to pick up the pieces. If there was any justice in the world, he would die, keel over, then and there, press his shiny ham of a face up against the display case, wild convulsions sending the stubby pencil flying from behind his ear. With the weight of an elephant on his chest, he would continue to call out incoherently as he worked his way through a long list of ticket numbers. The tickets themselves, belonging to customers of a sort he resented but had learned to love, we ripped to shreds by his trembling hands. 271, a case of Iberico, belonging to the gentleman in the wool suit. 272, a veal shank for the paralegal with the neatly trimmed Van Dyke. I knew his butcher shop would be reduced to this, a place where moral superiority trumped fiscal responsibility. It was not hard to imagine that these yuppies, already a regular sight in businesses run by 20-somethings who called themselves artisans, would take a liking to a new-age butcher shop run by a man with a post-ironic mullet. They, and only they, could look past its location, a low-rent district seen as untrustworthy by the town's country club Republicans. And if they didn't, well, it wasn't about the money. It had never been, would never be. His manner of speaking and our brief face-offs pissed me off. There was a calmness to him that I knew I would not have felt in his position. He was priceless, but if I told him as much, he turned my words against me. He was priceless, yes, but only in the sense that his work was so meaningful as to be beyond the societal benchmarks of monetary value. Even as his butcher shop succeeded, as he pulled in eye-popping sums of money from people to whom the numbers meant little, he did not lose his high ground, arguing that if he wanted to make money in the meat industry, he would work for Jimmy Dean, be a foreman on the killing floor of some factory farm. No, dear, this was about more than money. This was his passion project. Didn't I know what a passion project was? I did. He was mine, a constant uphill battle. Even as I tried to fix him, his heart was elsewhere. He talks about steak constantly, even during sex. I tried to change the subject, but I knew it was hopeless. His passion would be spent during the workday. Each night he was reduced to a limp-dick coward I could not help but try and fail to please. Once he finished, even then I was not naive enough to expect reciprocality. He would lie on top of the comforter, sweating and bloated. If I brought up his health, he would ask that I trust the Atkins diet, which was, he assured me, a darkest before dawn sort of process. Even then, I knew better than to bring up the butcher shop. He railed against my attempts to stifle this idealistic dream, unable to shake the idea that I was against him, that I was the only thing keeping him from doing something good for the world. What he did not understand was that I knew better than him, that I knew what was right for him. Thank you.
Hello. So I'm Katrin Mizik, and I'm going to be reading a poem. It's called Because Memory Bridges the Living and the Dead. I made a doll. It looks like you, I think. No one's told me otherwise. It laughs with the voice I gave it and called yours because I'd never seen you serious. I made a doll of my teen ideals, my desire for coolness, hoping to become like you at 17, tone as many shoes as you, have a foot locker for a closet, and a phone for the girls I like. I made a doll of debates about deodorant, whether I took a bath or not, and a dance around a skating rink. I told you about ball, that LeBron's still playing, and he's better than Mike. And you responded with a mouth I helped to move, sewn on the front in a permanent smile, with an upwards nick in the corner. I made a doll that's never serious, because memory bridges the living and the dead. That's all.
My name is Jaden Binnenhaley. Today I have two flash fiction pieces. The first, one of those ill animals. Currently trying to keep his head on his shoulders and not succeeding while staring down at a French worksheet, a manic-looking, pudgy tuballard, what his brother calls him, sickly, vitamin D deficiency, wide-eyed, comes with the manic thing, pot-bellied, 5 o'clock shadowed, haggard, dad never taught him to shave, lost in thought, Adam's apple, super senior stashed, Axe body spray smelling, nothing works. Can't shave, can't talk the talk, can't walk the walk, can't handle the heat in the kitchen, touch his toes, do his taxes, or really anything useful, but who is persistently, slowly, really slowly making his way through this French worksheet while headbanging to old-school punk bands like The Clash and Black Flag, like a grognard lost in his ways. Though I guess grognard is the wrong thing to call him because he's only 19, and grognard implies something older, something like an old man grumbling. That is where the word originated, grumbling old men in Napoleon's army. Grognard is French for one who grumbles, a grumbler. But even still, grognard might not be wrong per se because this man does grumble. He's also an old soul when it comes to keeping up with the times. One could say he lives under a rock, but unfortunately he lives in his mother's basement. The housing market sucks. Can't really blame him, even though he blames himself for stuff like this. You know, the vastly manic-looking, pudgy, tuballard, sickly, wide-eyed, etc. I'm not going to put you through that again. Even though he goes through it often enough to question the genuine, actual prospects of just forgetting all about it, getting better, or just straight up turning his life around. But even through all of this, he often puts the idea away for later, thinking things like, maybe when I'm done with school, or when I'm making good money. But I don't have the confidence that he will ever get himself a good job. I mean, he would have to start showering. Doesn't have the time. Learning how to shave through a YouTube tutorial, using deodorant, the chemicals, and shampoo, and soap, and all these things. He could go outside more. He does like fishing and hiking and camping. He could actually study for his French class rather than headbanging to Disposable Heroes by Metallica. Nope. The song is changing. Teen Spirit by Nirvana. Is this guy 12? Like, Jesus, he hasn't answered any of these French questions in 10 minutes. He's like one of those ill animals that you really hope will get better but just don't think will. My next piece, tonal whiplash, before and before and before. There is an indescribable amount of deja vu. Something like swaddling yourself in your favorite blanket while clasping a cup of hot chocolate. At the same time, though, it seems like something you shouldn't remember, like floating in amniotic fluid or drowning. Even still, all of it feels not entirely wrong, and your life flashing before your eyes subsumes your vision for only a moment before it's over. With a bit of reverence and a pinch of astonishment, you get to walk the halls of your family's old house, the old one, before things turned bad and before you started worrying about the life you were going to live. Your uncle is there. You don't know him, and he doesn't know you. He's about your age, which is to say, too young. He still has the broken shards of glass and metal running out of his exposed flesh. He looks like someone you want to know. Your grandmother is there. You don't know her, but she knows you. She was the one swaddling you before you opened your eyes, and the one who wanted the best for you. She's different. She is healthy and energetic, nearly running to give you a hug and to sit you down after such a long time apart. Your nephew is there. You don't know him either. Nobody does. Not even his mother, your sister, who was supposed to swaddle him and to give breath to his little lungs and to feed him. She isn't there, but you know she wants to see him. Everyone does. At the end of it all, you have a happy, if patchwork, family. They are of all ages, some too old and some too young, but you have plenty to talk about. As the new arrival, you go on and on about the childhood of childhoods. They tell you what they saw, and you think about before and before and before the accident that killed you, and before you grew up, and before you knew these family members, and before you knew that your life was also theirs in some way, and before you opened your infant eyes. Thank you.
Hey, I'm T. Robinson, and I'll be reading 2 poems for y'all today. Inferior God, I turned my bathroom into a temple for you, looked up at the plate of light and asked you to reach down into the pits of social damnation and save me. Begged you to let me bathe in the glow of your skin and pleaded for piercings from all the little arrows in your green eyes. Such blessings will never be granted because those prayers tend to stick to my stomach, churn and turn to vomit, rolling off my tongue easy as dense cubes that fall and crack on the white tiled floor. Which leaves me here, with all your little pinches taunting my soul and tears crawling down my face, meandering around my mountainous nose and giving life to the sprouts above my lips. My next prayer is for those sprouts to grow up tall, past that thick plate, static and captious, to push through all the scars you've had to call home, bringing on their backs all the prayers I've needed you to hear, sending you confessions of my sins, of my love, of guilt and hurt and faultiness, of inferiority to my inferior God. My next poem is called Embarrassment and Its Malleable Tendencies. It puppets me in a war inside of a war. I tell myself the war inside is civil and concrete and familiar, while in the one outside, I am a frozen enemy of the people. Then a bullet pings pink off my face. Fuchsia and searing consumes me, firing down my naked chest and limbs in vibrations that peel my skin like Medusa. It stones my shape in still silence. It blankets my satin baby wholly, swaddles and cradles and enables, sinks in and replaces my bones. It fits better there. Structuring my messy makeshift frame and zipping up my suit of skin. Stronger now, like chitin. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jalen Gill, and I'll be reading a piece of fiction called Pieces. It started a couple weeks ago. I think the first thing to go was a pen. The plastic cracked, and suddenly the little pieces were all over my paper. The ink spilled, too, and it stained my hands and desk. I was frustrated, sure, but I thought nothing of it. I'd broken pens in the past. I cleaned the ink the best I could and moved on. Next was my necklace. This one was otter, but it was cheap, so I thought nothing of it. I fiddled with the latch, and it just all fell apart. Each link of the chain detached from the others it was clinging onto, until all that was left in my hand was each end of the chain. The links fell to the floor, some sticking to my clothes and my hair. Next was my doorknob. When I went to open the door, it just broke off, like it wasn't even screwed in to begin with. At this point, I was sure someone was messing with me, but I had no proof. I called my friends, my boyfriend, my family, but none of them would fess up. None of them even believed me. It's not like I had a history of lying. Sure, I'd exaggerate occasionally, maybe even embellish here or there, but never outright lie. Why was it so hard for them to believe? I wasn't even claiming it was supernatural, just that one of them was taking a prank too far. But they just keep asking, why would someone be so invested in a prank that they'd sneak into your house and unscrew a doorknob? And I'd reply, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And they'd sigh and each tell me different things, like get some sleep or just fix the doorknob. Over the next week, it didn't stop. The handle came off my fridge, then my hairbrush fell to pieces, and my keyring completely disassembled. I tried fixing them, found the screws, and bought glue, but they never stayed together, breaking again as soon as I tried to use them. Then my phone shattered, though I guess I technically dropped that one. And when it broke, none of the pieces shattered. Instead, the pieces connected them snapped, leaving it in solid but disconnected pieces. I didn't know what to do, really. What would be next? My car? My house? Me? I was sure I was the issue, that I was the sole reason that everything was falling apart around me. I wondered if this was saying something about me, and maybe it would stop if I could just pull myself together. So I left my house more often. I was almost never home, not that things stopped escalating. But it felt just a bit better when the thing I was breaking was a public bathroom faucet handle or an ancient computer in a public library. I tried meditation and time off work, tried every instruction from every self-help book I could find, but nothing fixed it. In fact, I can hardly touch anything anymore without it falling right to pieces. I'll have to go home eventually, but for now I'm just wandering until I run out of excuses. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Louisa Jane, and I'm from Charleston. Today, I will be reading a poem for you called Blackberry. Pool of the ocean, swans, leap between his eyes, in purple pillars the moon hangs. High-strung notes of crawl and sleep, picked partly apart by his sweet features, creatures who scrape at inside lining of his cold, cold, hurt-hot ribs, bite my fingers like so many wrinkled thumbs squirming inside dirt, dancing on the ice outside my window, unlatched as an offering to the deer that once statue stood, menage a deux lumped logs of decapitated pines, dry leaves atop mountain husk. They sent virgins to whispered hands, gnarled at the knuckle, dark at the nail. Unnamed but for dead languages, knowing, may soon to be dead again, but not the elders, not Elder Rich, not him, not when the sky tastes like blackberry on his lips, even though his tongue was so sick, sharp, bleeding. I guess that's where he gets the tartness from, which in some other idea is probably a curse, but not in this one. No, not here where the wind pulls my hair in rhythm, where the leaves crack with my spine, where the smoke billows in my ears. No, this is just how I like it here, how I want it here. Rolling invisible foxes and jamming sticks down a tunnel throat, cursing woodpeckers in the high noon evenings in the water buffalo oasis, mainstream lily pads lapped in chai tea, streamlines across the aeroplane sky, and maybe those are the real stars, the only stars I'll ever see, the only stars he'll ever show me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tristan Gibson. I'm from West Columbia, and I'm going to be reading my flash fiction piece, The Way I See It. I'm going to make this quick because I know therapy is a hoax. The gist is that I was going to break up with a girl whose name isn't really important, but sounds pretty to say, to the point where I would sometimes say it to myself because I liked the way it sounded coming out of my mouth. And whenever I would say it, I would remember that it belonged to someone who loves me, and in that sense, belonged to someone who belonged to me. But none of that's important because I'm going to break up with her even if it hurts me a little. And I say a little not because it wouldn't hurt me, but because if I were to compare the amount of her the amount of hurt each party would feel between me and this girl, I wouldn't be very hurt at all, which doesn't take away from the fact that I would very much be hurt, because this is someone who really cares about me, someone who would return my call before her mother's, before Gandhi or Obama. I mean, Christ, she would answer me before she answered Jesus, someone that I have to hurt, because I am not a very good person in spite of her loving me and in spite of my friends who have insisted that I am indeed a good person, because yes, I've done some good things in my life. I've paid for things, I've forgiven debts, I've given good advice. However, my friends probably gleaned this idea solely from the way I treat them, which is very different from the way I treat this girl, and thus supports my belief that I am not a good person, because I do not love her as much as she loves me, and I do not enjoy feeling like I am a bad person for something I can't control. More than that, I do not enjoy feeling like I would be upset if she left, or one day thought to herself that she could do better. So I'm going to break up with her, but I'm going to do it as an act of charity in a way. And it might help me convince myself that I am a good person. Also, can I put my feet on the table? And, okay, I've encountered a roadblock in which I don't want to follow through because that means I wouldn't have her anymore. This girl, whose name isn't important, is uniquely and inexplicably mine, which is extremely attractive because that means she doesn't belong to anyone else and functions as, essentially, an extension of myself. And everything that makes her interesting pertains to me. Like, she'll always make this delicious Greek dish for me on Wednesdays and then ask if she's improved, or leave a handwritten letter on my bedside table in which she tries to find a way to say, "I love you," without saying, "I love you." Or try to make herself more attractive when I reject her advances for longer than a week. Small things like that make her exotic. Plus, she cherishes me in a way no one else has. Like, pretty much ignores the things I do, things that, in hindsight, were especially cruel or vindictive or simply something I shouldn't have done to someone who loves me and is always trying to please me. Even this one time where I told her to stop asking me about whether or not I thought she could get into college, because, in all honesty, I didn't, because she dropped out of high school like an idiot, and obviously I didn't put it like that at the time, but she still got all depressed about it, and she essentially gave up after that. And now, despite the fact that more often than not, each person in a relationship is simultaneously pursuing their own interests alongside their partners, this girl, whose name isn't important, just isn't like that. I come first, and that's what I think makes her so desirable. I want it to always be that way, which is why I've been so hesitant to break it off with her, along with the fact that she knows things about me and I know things about her. Even extremely personal things are things that we know about each other. Like, I know that her stepbrother, whose name I can't remember, thought he was home alone, but it turned out that this girl I'm dating had actually stayed home from school, so she was the one who ended up having to call the police after he overdosed. And she knows that one of my teachers got me blackout drunk, but I'm not getting into it. So that's the problem. I feel like she has too much going on, she knows private details about my life, and she might have some things messing with her head. And so the fact that I'm not a good person won't be good for her in the long run, and it feels like more trouble than it's worth. So, again, I've been meaning to break up with this girl, but I also don't want to, because this girl will become something like a stranger, and I'm getting so much out of her for so little. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nina Rodriguez. I'm from Indian Land, and I'm going to be reading to you my flash fiction piece called Updates from Your Friend About Her Other Friend. So there was a girlfriend and a boyfriend, and they were in bed together, and it was raining, and they were watching some darkly shaded action movie with an actor she didn't recognize and an actress whose Botox didn't let her face move the way it needed for any given scene. And they weren't really paying attention, even though the boyfriend had begged for the girlfriend to let him pick the movie. And they weren't even talking or anything either, so the boyfriend was just on his phone, and the girlfriend was just sort of staring at him and thinking about what her friend said about her boyfriend, because they all said that she should dump him because they hadn't even been on a real date in like 3 months or something. And she admitted to them that she always always had to text first, and he never really touched her or kissed her, and they didn't really have sex, except for the one time that they did. But the one time that they did, it was awkward because he didn't take off his glasses, and they kept slipping off his nose and smacking her in the face. And it was just uncomfortable because his legs were really long, and she kept bumping into them, and overall, she just didn't really enjoy it. And usually she found herself texting her friends some sort of casual complaint about him, and her friends just didn't get why she was still with him because they all thought he was really boring and she was so much prettier, and they said he was just ugly and just not worth so much of her time. But she didn't like to consider any shallow factors when it came to relationships. And even if she did, she didn't really think he was that ugly anyways. Even though she could admit he wasn't beautiful or anything, she still thought he was cute, the same way a pug or a founding father was cute, a little bit more natural and abstract. And besides, she didn't really think she was that much cuter than anybody really, because when she looked at their photos, or at any photos or magazines or movie posters or whatever, she didn't see anybody that was better looking than the others. She just saw people, because nobody was really that much better looking or gorgeous or prettier than anybody else, because beauty wasn't real. It was just a thing made up by Hollywood and diet ads and men who make up standards for everything. But that didn't mean people couldn't have their own personal standards, of course. That just meant she personally didn't have any of her own for her own relationships, but not in the way that her friends always said, but in the way that meant she just saw people's personalities and souls as being higher than their faces or bodies or smiles, because everybody was beautiful, because beauty was just a social construct made up to keep people distracted from real, actual, important issues, even though nobody she knew seemed to agree with her about these things. Not her friends back home, who struggled to see what she saw in her boyfriend. Not her new friends at school, who knew her boyfriend personally and all thought he was lame. And not even her mother, who had pulled her aside to express her disapproval after she brought him home for dinner. But even if it was a real thing, she thought her boyfriend was cute anyways, like a sad dog or a stuffed animal that had been thrown out because of a manufacturing error. And she liked him just fine, and she liked being a girlfriend even more. And that's why she smiled at him and kissed him while they were lying in her bed together watching TV while it was raining outside, even though he didn't kiss her back. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm reading a fiction piece in the style of an internet post titled AITA for not letting my vampire neighbor into my home. I, 24 male, have lived in an apartment complex for about a year and a half now. My next door neighbor, 23 female, allegedly, moved in 5 months ago, and she's a vampire. I don't really care that she's a vampire. It's not like she's ever bitten anyone in front of me before, but it's pretty obvious to me. The way she dresses is a total giveaway. Every time I see her, she's in something black, and she wears a lot of turtlenecks, long skirts, and gold jewelry, which makes sense because vampires are allergic to silver. She's always coming home at strange hours, too. I asked her what she did, and she said she worked as a medical examiner. I thought that was kind of cool. This was before I realized she was a vampire. But then she told me she'd originally wanted to be a doctor, but didn't trust herself to operate on a living person, because she'd bite them, I guess. Also, she's allergic to garlic. She said it was mild at the Thanksgiving get-together, but she was obviously downplaying it. At first, we would just talk in the hallways, which was fine since other people were around, but then she started inviting me to places. I tried to come up with excuses instead of flat out turning her down, and I feel kind of bad about it, but she's a vampire. It's in self-defense. She's never gotten mad at me about it, she just looks a little sad. It never discourages her, though. Recently, when we got to talking for a long while, she started asking if she could come inside my apartment. She's really specific about never going into places without getting the okay first, and that was a huge red flag. Everyone knows vampires have to be invited into places. I always politely turn her down because no way am I letting a vampire into my home. The issue is, she's getting super insistent. She keeps asking me to go to places with her, like to dinner or a show, or if I want to hang out at hers, or if I can show her around my apartment. I told her I'd introduce her to my hamsters before I realized she was a vampire, and she keeps bringing it up. I told her they died. Something happened the other day, which is the whole reason I made this post. She asked if I was wearing a new cologne and leaned in. She was so obviously trying to smell my blood, and I was kind of freaked out. I don't want to be mean to her, but I'm running out of excuses. I'm going to have to tell her straight up that I'm never going to hang out with a vampire. I already confirmed with a friend that I can stay at his place for a bit. So is this totally reasonable, or am I the a-hole? Creebly Wet Shop responded, "How much does Dracula pay you to scroll Reddit and post stuff like this?" Gerald Harrison, 1983, responded, "Graveyard picnics are making a comeback. Plenty of crosses there. If she reacts strangely, you have your answer, and if she doesn't, enjoy your date." Totally Not Your Vampire Neighbor responded, "YTA." Thank you.
My name is Gus Massinides, and I will be reading 2 poems. The first one is called Triple Exposure of a Boy, 35 millimeter. 1. Our mothers told us we could be anything, so we became basking turtles, slipping in and out of the murky water under the summer sun, 2 blue bodies cutting darkness below the surface, shoulders wrangling with weighty air. And I haven't been so soaked since I ran through the rain with my sister. 2. His mouth is the shape of a gun barrel, a harsh O delineating the gloom, chapped lips like broken beer bottles crowned on the pavement. He whispers not to think about the young buck we saw contorting among the pines, antlers velvety and loose, jolting onto the ground. 3. He says he thinks it's weird that we plant our dead in graveyards like orchards, and I agreed, because what else do you say? He tells me not to drive the hard bluffs of my body into the silted creek because it wouldn't forgive me, so I don't. Instead, I cup the water and watch it drain and swirl like the dregs of my father's tea. My second poem is called At the Doctor's Office, Sisyphus Makes Small Talk with the Boulder. You aren't as heavy as I expected you to be, and your surface is smooth from all the times I have pushed you, to the Thanksgiving table, across the Walmart parking lot, and here to the sterile waiting room. Smooth and polished, glassy like the empty stare of my empty grandfather, forgetting gulch and grapevine, you remind me of the rocks I once found piled in the woods. I would spend hours climbing them, poking and prodding crack-dwelling copperheads. Perhaps that is why you were given to me, to make me remember those boyhood days or the childhood visits to the doctor, filling in the bubbles of my family's medical history, the depression, the mania, the dementia. I used to watch my mother do it, but now I sit once more and do it alone. Thank you.
My name is Lil Oxenrider. I'm from Gilbert, South Carolina, and I'll be reading a piece of flash fiction titled A Waking Walk. You undress in the winter, and though I don't see you do so, it's cold enough that your body and warmth exiting through the front door makes a chill sit on my chest, and I have to pull up my blanket to cover it. Only during winter, and only at night, do I have to do this. This remembering of why it is that my chest is cold, which is the remembering that you've thrown yourself out in the snow. I throw the blankets off of myself and walk on the creaking cabin floor planks, and though you don't see me do so, you know that I'm coming and you walk further away. A pile of your clothing lumps together on the welcome mat. You walk further away and I see you, pale as the night is, your white calves melting into the ground. I never see your face. On your back there are moles splashed like ink from the tip of a quill. I never see if your eyes are alive or dead or sleeping, but you've never been a sleepwalker and you hate getting out of bed. I wonder why this quirk of yours started. It started last winter and ended last winter, and this winter it's starting again, where I'm awoken at night by a chill just pressing all its weight over my body, just laying on top of me, and I can feel something missing, which is you. You are something out in the snow with yourself all exposed in such a strange way that it's natural. You act like you're called by something, or like you like being cold, even though I know you hate being cold, like really hate it. So you're throwing yourself into your own hatred? Why? In the morning, you smile into a cup of hot chocolate. Every time I've asked your morning self what your night self was doing, you blush embarrassed and blush angry and throw your arms up and say nothing for the 1,000th time. Nothing. And we get nothing out of talking about it, so I end up following you into the snow again. Like this, again, like you're an animal. Not a human animal, an animal. You're like nothing I've ever seen. And my human animal instincts tell me to lock you up, and maybe you'd thank me. But you're wild, and you don't hear my voice each time I call out to you with my breath swirling in the dark. You just keep moving. Maybe you also don't know why you do it, or maybe you don't know you're doing it at all. I'm so cold that I stopped walking, and what's crazy about not walking anymore is that the first winter you did this, it was so new. So when I was laying on my side, jolted by the noise and the cold and the great wind of the great winter, urging me to do something for the greater good, I wasn't sure what to make of it. I never knew this was something you'd do. I started running. That's what I do when I'm not sure what to make of things, and ran to the front door, and the snowfall outside was monstrous, big fat chunks. You were walking in the snow with no clothes on. It was so weird. The white streaks censored the intimate parts of your body. Back then, I ran into the winter to retrieve you. Back then, I pulled you inside. Right now, though, I plant my feet and watch you. You're so insistent in doing this, and for once, I want to know what to make of it, so I stay in the snow with you. So be it, and when you walk as far as you want to. The flurries on this night are gentle, your body uncensored and raw. You drop to your knees and shovel snow over yourself. You fall on your back so you can bury yourself better, until all that's there is the round moon of your face, with your eyes wide open, and there's something you see that I can't. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julian Jones, and I'll be reading 2 poems. The first one is titled, Crocodiles Live in the Lake Near Your House, or So Your Mother Says. There is sand in between your toes and under your fingernails and in the crevices of your swimsuit, and you can feel it crumble and scratch at your skin anytime you move. But you absolutely cannot go into the water to clean it all off because your mother tells you there are crocodiles lurking beneath, and it's dangerous enough as it is for you to even be outside on the bank just sitting and watching, so there's absolutely no way she'll let you go into the water, no matter how hot you are, and no matter how much sand you're covered in, and no matter how fast you can swim, and no matter if there even actually are crocodiles in the water, since they haven't officially been seen since 1966, and it's 2000 and something right now. So are they even really crocodiles hiding, or is it just like a folk legend like Mothman or the Jersey Devil, or when you promised your mother you could be trusted alone, or when your sister brought a boy home when your mother was away and promised she was kind, and your mother, she says that she's trying to keep you safe, but it just feels like another way to keep you dirty, and all you can think about is the time she didn't let you go out with that nice boy from the fair because she said it was too dangerous to go out with a boy at night, even though you know it doesn't matter if it's nighttime or not because he would have taken you anyways. Or the time she told you that you couldn't be friends with the girl down the street anymore because she pierced her own nose and it got infected, and now she can't move the left side of her face. So now you just have to sit outside in the sand, in the heat, and suffer. And of course, you could go back inside and take a cold bath, but then you'd have to deal with fluorescent lights that give you a migraine, or your sister yelling at you to get out because she has to pee, and you know there's only one bathroom. Or you'll have to deal with your mother knocking on the door every 5 minutes to check on you because of that one time you were too quiet in the bathroom for too long and you had to get your stomach pumped. So instead, you stay out on the shore and watch for crocodiles, and a part of you almost hopes that you'll see deep yellow eyes staring out at you because at least then you'll know for sure that your mother was honest about something. And then my second poem is called The Thing in Her Closet. There is a mouse stuck in a glue trap deep in her closet under her clothes. It's wrong. She knows. And she's sure she should have grabbed him, moved him from there, but she couldn't. He makes the room reek, fills it, suffocates. So she lights a candle, ignores. She's aware that soon she'll have to put on those gloves, plug her nose, and snatch him up, but she can't. Doesn't have it in her to open that closet door, to see the remains of that poor, small thing, can't bear to feel its cold, soft body in her hands, unmoving, fur sticky and matted, felt even through her latex gloves. So, instead, she lets the putrid stay, keeps the door shut, lets his rot seep into her floorboards, marking his territory, leaving his stench, and she lights more candles, shoves clothes under the cracks of her door, barricading, and hides under her covers from that poor, small, dead thing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sun Clark, and I'm going to be reading 2 poems. I'm from Greenville. My first poem is titled, She Was a Bad Horse. She was a bad horse and would not run again. Red tendons, slippery and lax, her uterus, a pack of rabid worms restructuring, mealy and concise with pain, as if she never possessed herself at all. She would not birth again. Black gnats bullied at her flesh, spitting sparks, electric, excited, and blessedly mean. Her gut was warm. She felt no pain. In her prime, her name was Golden Marble Tempest Prince, and her eyes were as handsome as sharp crystals, a steely horse, machine, a dream, an eel on the racetrack, cut with big joy and trampling acre after acre of misbehaving wind. The zephyr, so fast she slipped right through her own fine hair, as if she never possessed herself at all, so fast. God's best was but a meter faster, which she knew. A boy makes little sculptures into bodies out of glue. My second poem is titled Cue Hair Up at the Very Back of Neck. I'm afraid I am losing my mind. Gray-green haze, pervasive, stale, and I hear Sondheim. I hear Steel Drum and Sonoma and South Hollywood in lights. I'll drink some diesel cool, default a bond or two, take stock, take breath. It's easy to spit crystal in a scrying eye, like I never learned how to be gentle. Exploding profits from a frag grenade, curdling Sierpinski with a nuke and shrug, shrapnel hot and snug against the palm line's psalm, an empty manifesto filling in. I try to find the stone that locks the shallows out, find the swollen fortune in its tumor route, find the holy grail, gold fat, red carrot, and emboss it with a vinyl I Hate Mondays, or acrylic Elvis Presley getting down. Pick a poison, baby Jesus, cross or crown. All my oil futures so mature, they drink and smoke, and drive so far the road just grows into a bauble of blue air. My best predictions all a waste. I have no idea where this path is going. I'm prostrate on the pavement, salt to taste. Thank you.
My name is Corinne Glenn, and I'm from Fort Mill. I'll be reading two poems. The first poem is titled Messages from a Universe in Which I Don't Belong. We are made for baseball on Saturdays, born from bubbling rosacea and wiping sweat off our freckled cheeks. We are shot from BB guns, braces and skin-colored Band-Aids, golf carts and green yards. There is no chain link or pit bull. We are made from plastic car plows oblong tracks through ant hill. We live in a world where missing tooth means we wait for the tooth fairy. Welcome, intruder, white blonde pixie dust as she leaves you leftover gold as bright as her hair. There's no color, there's no red on pavement. Color is made from the hued gargle of soap. We play in a world where chemtrails are linen, draped on table and sofa. There is always light. We can fall asleep to the tangles of telephone wires, scraping roof shingles. We can trip on the plastic metal of Hot Wheels. We sip from country club pools. Let the chlorine texture your hair. There are no blacks. Your skin's as light as our dandelions will weave our roots under house and road. My second poem is titled At 12. At 12, Lydia presses push pins into corkboard. She crucifies her evidence, crossing red twine from article to photo. She listens on the other line of her older brother's phone calls. She is 2 steps ahead of sneaking out of bedroom windows. Lydia cuts her elementary school scrunchies to make bookmarks for Nancy Drew. She writes her diary entries with glitter glue and cutting letters from Teen Magazine. Lydia sits outside the door when her mother cleans, just to smell the bleach. She holds a handful of pills in the dark to see how her sister felt with keys wedged between her fingers. Lydia steals the library's tapes of 48 hours to calculate the time it takes for the cops to find her body. She stares at the 12 hours looking back at her. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, there it goes. My name is Amelia Squires. I'm from Columbia, and I will be reading an admittedly very long monologue from a play I wrote called Into the Garden. Just a little bit of context. This play is about a girl who wakes up in this garden without her memories and has no idea how she got there. And so this monologue is her kind of working through and remembering what happened. Right. It was my sister. She was with me. I think we were at a party. I think I wasn't invited. No, that's not right. It's that I'm not normally invited. But this one was special. I was invited, and I think I was really excited, but something happened. I think my parents told me I couldn't go, and I got angry. But then my sister convinced them, told them that it would be fine if she came with me, and I was still so mad. I mean, why couldn't I just go by myself? I'm not so fragile that I would just break being in the same room as some stupid, drunk teenagers. I was so mad at her, but I agreed. And I couldn't stop arguing with her. She was so annoyed and on edge, asking me why I wanted to be at a place like this. It was kind of dirty, and none of the people were anyone I was actually close to. But this was my only chance to show our parents that I could be a normal teenager, that I could be around normal people and not just fall to pieces. And as the party went on, we lost sight of each other. I was dancing in some corner, and Esme was doing, well, whatever a prude like her does at a party where everyone's either wasted or trying to get with you, or both. I ended up getting wasted. It was my first real party. I just wanted to enjoy myself, And I think somehow Esme ended up getting drunk too. Who knows how that happened. I always figured her to be too much of a prude for that kind of thing. And so, when it was time to leave, neither of us were in the condition to drive. I was swaying on my feet, and Esme could barely walk straight, leaning on me for support. But I guess somewhere in the back of my mind, I saw this as an opportunity. My parents never let me drive alone, They thought it would be too risky for me and anyone on the road next to me if I were to have an episode and couldn't steer. When we got in the car, Esme was so wasted she barely even blinked when I put her in the passenger seat. I mean, I had driven before. My parents would take me out driving, always with them, always on these deserted roads behind our house. It was my favorite thing to do with them. And I figured this wouldn't be any different. There would just be some cars added into the mix. And so I start driving. And everything's fine at first. I put my phone onto a navigation route that will take us the most backroads way possible. And Esme isn't saying anything, so I think I'm doing pretty great. I mean, sure, I swerve a few times here and there, but it was the mountain roads at 1 a.m., and there was no one to worry about. So it was fine. Until it wasn't. I was doing fine, but then I coughed. Not a lot, and it's not like my whole breathing thing even causes me to cough. It just hurts, and I don't think anybody really understands that, and it's just a little pain, and... But Esme heard me, and for some reason, out of all things, this was what woke her up. Not me struggling to get her stupid flailing limbs in the car, not me strapping her in, not me starting the engine. No, it was my cough. So she sits straight up, right in her seat, like all the alcohol suddenly just drains out of her the moment she hears me cough. And she just starts yelling, screaming, wrestling with her buckle, trying to get it off, screaming at me to stop the car. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause to these writers. Great job, you guys. I want to thank Scott Gould, nonfiction teacher, Emily Cinquemani, our poetry teacher, and Austin Wilson, our playwright, who is always with us. And there's a reception in the lobby thanks to the Peace family. Please enjoy. Thank you so much for coming, and have a great afternoon. Bye.